So what I'd like to start by doing is if you could each just sort of introduce yourself in 2 minutes or less and just tell us who you are, what you do, what you're most proud of in your organization in terms of that HR sphere, okay? So I'll start with Ezrin, if you'd just like to introduce yourself.
Okay, hi guys, my name's Ezrin, you can call me Ezrin. I'm actually a civil engineer. Somehow I cut the rope and suddenly I'm in HR, yeah? Performance management, talent management, employer branding, employee engagement, people strategy, internal communications, you name it, yeah? Now I'm focusing 100% on leadership and talent development for the AirAsia group. Basically how to maximize zero cost and harness the best of people within the organization and outside. So that's what I do. Thanks.
Okay, Vivian.
Hi, my name is Vivian Hao. I can speak Cantonese, but at the same time, I'm the lead of learning, talent, and OD in AXA. You probably know that the learning, talent, and OD are very interrelated, and this is probably the most powerful and enjoyable jobs that I have. I'm really, really proud to work with a very great team of team members, and some of them are here today as well. I'm an organizational psychologist by training, so it's just the same as cutting rope, actually, the same feelings as a HR professions. And it's always in my mind that I like to do something to make people feel like they work more happily and efficient.
Thank you, Vivian. And Susie?
Hello, everyone. I'm Susie Quirk. I think you can tell I'm from Australia. I lead the People and Change Advisory, so working with a number of our clients on HR issues across Hong Kong and China. I came up here 3 years ago from Australia to set up the HR consulting business for KPMG. We're quite established in other parts of the world, but we're new to the market here. And I think what I'm most proud of is that we've been able to help and serve our clients very well over the last 3 years.
Thank you. And Deborah?
Fantastic. Good afternoon, everyone. It's Deb here. And again, it's a little Australian corner because I'm also from Australia. So my role is Global Head of Talent for Shangri-La Hotels and Resorts. So it's a global role, and I look after initiatives from our management program, so finding those fresh graduates all the way up through our internal talent as well, up to our senior level. And basically, I'm the piece together that finds the talent and hooks it up with Shangri-La.
Okay, great. So you know who's on the stage, okay, in the Australian corner, which ends about here, okay, because I'll be shouting for England down here. But I will ask some questions, first of all, just to get the ball rolling. But I do want you to be engaged in this. I do want you to be a part of this. So please, if you hear something, write down a little note in your notepads there and get ready, because I'll come back to you for questions later on, okay? So anyone who doesn't ask a question, you've got no hope of winning that iPad, I'm telling you, right? So make sure you write those down. Now, we heard a lot this morning, okay, about being strategic and about it's very important now that HR needs to talk to the C-suite. That's a very easy thing to say, okay? In many organizations, perhaps the larger organizations are more open to doing that. But what advice would you give to somebody in HR who is having difficulty in getting a voice at the table, in not really being taken seriously, because perhaps in their organization, either because of the structure or because of the CEO is a bit of a dinosaur, or because of political reasons, they're not really getting heard properly at the board. What advice would you give them to build up a better relationship with the C-suite? So I'll start with Ezrin over there.
Okay. It's ironic that, Paul, you're asking this question. My first conference in Hong Kong, it was this Hong Kong HR conference or something like that, yeah? They asked the same question, the first question. So my answer is still the same today, yeah? If CEO, you don't want to listen, you resign. Yeah. My point here is guts. We should feel less inferior. What is this nonsense about feeling inferior? That I am less than commercial, that I'm less than business development. You are people, yeah? Things don't get done by robots. Even the planes we fly, it's flown by people. So we should have guts. It takes someone of great courage to say, like, dude, you have to listen to me because I understand people, yeah? So that's basically my advice. The first thing is to really psych your mind and your heart up that, yes, you are doing something important for, not only for the company, but for the nation, and build onwards.
I think that's great advice. And if everybody starts leaving, then that's great news for jobsDB, because there'll be a lot more people on that platform. Vivian, what advice would you give?
Yeah, well, if I can add one step before leaving the CEO who doesn't listen, I would say challenge. Still, the guts is still the same thing. We should have the guts to challenge the senior executives. And sometimes I find that when you challenge, actually, that is a process of building trust.
Okay. I wonder if any of them are out there, or they're going to be very annoyed by this discussion later on. Susie?
It is a very interesting question, and every time I hear it all the time from my clients as well. And what we've found, and what is really working now, if you think what the CEO is after, the CEO is after evidence. The CEO is after, tell me how I can make my business better with the asset of people. You look after the asset of people, just as the IT guy looks after, or the CIO looks after the asset of IT. So tell me how I make my business better, my revenue better, my profit better, my capability better, how I can meet my strategy better with evidence about people. And I think if you can take that to the table, the CEO will listen more than he does, or she.
Deborah?
I think you need to learn to speak the language that they're looking for. So generally, you need to get your figures in order. You need to get that evidence and that justification ready, because that's what it will come back to. So you need to combat yourself. You need to educate yourself and speak that same language.
Okay, well, I take that on board, okay? I've got to speak their language. I've got to give them the figures. But I want to drill down into that a bit more. What exactly are those figures I should be going to them with? What are the sweet spots that the C-suite want to hear? What should I focus on? Because at the moment, I see a lot of HR drowning in HR metrics and HR data, and it's like coming out of my eyeballs. But which bits of that should I focus on? Susie, I'm going to come to you for that
this
one.
way.
If you look away, I come straight to you.
He's keeping us on our toes.
Well, one of the things that we've just done, we've just done a survey with the Economic Intelligence Unit, and one of the things that we found is that the percentage of HR functions that are starting to use data analytics in a predictive way is increasing. This is globally. So our results have shown that we've gone from 12% to 25% in 2 years of the CEOs that we spoke to. We spoke to 375 CEOs, and then we spoke to 150 HR directors around the world. So we are seeing that shift around the data space. But what do they want to know? They want to know, where am I going to get the biggest performance? Where am I going to hit the KPIs with the people? So who's our best performer? Who are our best performers, both from a role perspective as well as an individual perspective, and how are they meeting the KPIs? And where we've got underperformance, so if we've got a particular area that's not making their target, or the sales are down, or we're not meeting the operational targets, why is that?
Well, we'll come back to that predictive analytics a little bit later. But let's just see, Esrin, have you got anything to add to that in terms of when you've got the balls, okay, no pun intended, but you can speak to C-suite without being scared of them. But what do you speak to them about? What do you go to them with?
Right, okay. I think one of the first things, we are very obsessed, naturally HR people, with matrices, or whatever you want to call it, numbers, graphs, whatever. And sometimes we don't really use our brains. What we do is we cut and paste. We listen to some guy who's a consultant or an insultant, yeah? And we believe and we think that, yes, we must do these kind of numbers and get it crunched out, whatever. We must ask daring questions. Do we care about these numbers? Does it really matter? Yeah? If it doesn't matter, then why are we so hyped up about it? Why do we have to feel so insecure just because other companies are measuring those matrices? Sometimes you don't need those matrices. So by doing that, we've destroyed the first hurdle of excessive information. Yeah? And some things are pretty much subjective. You ask any boss within AirAsia, what is the most important trait up to work with that particular boss. It's got nothing to do with capability. It's got nothing to do with whether they have an MBA or not. The most important thing is, can you work with that guy? How are you going to measure that? You can't measure that, yeah? It's nonsensical to have this illusion that you can measure that, because you can't. And again, it takes courage to actually say that we can't measure that. Can you work with this guy or can't you? Yeah. So by doing that, we sustain a certain culture and we remove noise. And that's why a meeting that could take like 2 hours ends up just 10 minutes. And they can focus on more important things of the business. Thank you.
That noise that you talk about there, what were the first things to get axed then that you said, we just don't need this, it's just irrelevant? What kind of things were you cutting out of those matrices?
Oh, there's a lot, yeah.
It might be quicker to say what you left in, actually.
Right, okay. So let's say, for example, in AirAsia, they just want to know, for each aircraft, we have 11 pilots. We have 19 flight attendants. For every baggage handler. Andrew is our station head for Hong Kong. Hi, Andrew. How many ramp agents do you have for Hong Kong?
8.
Yeah, so pretty much. So we maintain those critical numbers, and that's good enough, yeah? And if you want to hire people who have more intellectual contribution, let's focus on that. But what we don't want to get into is analysis paralysis. Just too much talk, and then you end up doing 20 meetings and you get nowhere. Yeah? It's better to make mistakes and just move on and improvise. Yeah, that's how we work in AirAsia.
I think that's a good policy there, actually. Anyone else would like to add on that in terms of what we should be focusing on when we're talking to the C-suite?
I think the first thing is we need to ask ourselves, do we understand what the business KPI is? Do we really understand the business matrix? What is the most important thing for the business right now at this time of the business, of the economic macro environment? If we can't answer that, I think that's something as a HR professionals we should consider ourselves. So in AXA, we do have some programs and some ways to help people who are non-business setting, not in the insurance industry, to know more about the business and the industry. I think that's something very important for us as a HR to think about as well, because sometimes we push it to others. This is the business question, and we draw a line there. That's actually no line, boundaryness.
Okay. Well, in theory, we should try to make it as boundaryless as possible, but in the reality of a lot of organizations, especially ones where there are very different business, either different business units like Jebsen shared earlier, in terms of having very different streams and ways of doing things, but also a lot of businesses work in very different markets. In different countries, for example. I'm going to come to you in a minute, Deb. In terms of, for example, your hotel chain, you have properties in very, very diverse markets. How do you go about dealing with that sort of diversity and getting everybody onto the same page? Because you can't have a one-size-fits-all policy. So how do you go about doing that when you're trying to carry out this HR, but then you're confronted by the very different environments?
For Shangri-La, we've globalized it, and we split that into regions, and we've enabled each region to obviously deal with their particular market circumstances. And so we've released the reins of control, which has been a little bit jittery there, and we've allowed each market to obviously operate under the framework and make those changes and nuances that they need to.
So glocalizing, that's something I've heard quite a lot about. What is, if I'm HR and my CEO says, please glocalize our HR, how do I go about doing that? What have you learned that I should not do, and what have you learned that works well in terms of that?
Well, basically, we do have an expert in each region, and obviously we act as consultants to them, or they act as consultants to us in the corporate head office to tell us where those landmines are ahead of time, so that we don't step and go up in a big wave.
An expert in each region being what? In-house in your organisation?
In-house, actually.
And what role, what's their job title?
Basically, it'll be our area director of HR who will be able to give us the heads up on where we need to step, what we need to do, what's happening in that market, what we need to be aware of, market forces, just the trends and topics in a particular region. And obviously that comes back into the mothership, and we operate and sort of look at that global perspective.
So they do the mine sweeping and
Yep.
have a look for potential landmines. What do you do in like brand new markets if you're going into a new country that you're not in before? So there isn't somebody there who's a local expert. What do you do in that kind of situation?
We find the best local expert that we can immediately, and we take them on as a Shangri-La.
So
Yeah.
they might be working for somebody else.
Yes.
Right. Okay. How about the rest of you in terms of your organisation, Ezra, in AirAsia? You're focused in Asia, but do you find that there is a difference in terms of the HR policy between different hubs, or you're going for the same throughout the organisation?
Right, okay. Especially for low-cost carriers or low-cost businesses, it's very important to standardize things, yeah? You have the HSBCs of the world who are very much into globalizing, yeah? It might work for them, and you have like people like Google who says, darn it, we don't care, we go, you follow our style, that kind of thing. Whereas somewhere in the middle, yeah? Simple things like, let's say you're flying to Bangladesh, you never do this because you'll end up in jail, because this doesn't mean good in Bangladesh. I can do it now here because we're in Hong Kong, yeah? All right? But the thing is, some realities in life, people in say, the Orient, if I might say, China, whatever, they like things to be very templated, very KPI driven. Okay, that's cool, we'll focus on that. If you go to India, then if you receive an email, it's this long. So what I would do is I would copy everything and put it in Microsoft Text or whatever, and then delete. And then there's left one sentence. Oh, that's what you want to ask. See? All right, okay. So sometimes, no, too much localizing is, it destroys the business, yeah? Again, it's about courage. People might not buy into it, yeah, but after a while, many people will embrace it, yeah, because before AirAsia, I worked in more structured organizations like Petronas, yeah, yeah, very, very structured organization like Petronas. I was in civil engineering and so forth, yeah. So I always give this classic example. There are people who are in AirAsia. If they join Petronas, they would die standing out of boredom, yeah, or too structured. And there are people in Petronas, if they join AirAsia, they will die immediately as well, because they just cannot handle the high-speed environment. So it's a good mix.
Okay.
I just wanted to add something to that, and that is that we often get a lot of inquiries around this particular piece from our clients, and particularly market entry clients, clients coming into Hong Kong or China or Asia, or alternatively, Chinese clients wanting to go out to other parts of the world. There is a real question at the moment around where does the governance and the relationship lie between global, regional and local from a people perspective. Yeah. You would agree?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, well, we've looked at that sort of umbrella view. Let's drill down a little bit more in terms of inside the team now, and looking at that HR data that we brought up there already. So I'm going to come to Susie first on this one. But I want you to explain to everybody what exactly is evidence-based HR? What does that actually mean?
I was remembering our phone call, Paul. And,
when you were in the back of a taxi.
yes, you were flying back from America. And you did actually say, what is this evidence-based HR and what roles do you need? And I said, data scientist. And you went, what's a data scientist? I do remember that. Well, evidence-based HR is essentially making the link between people, the bridge between people and the business KPIs. That, in a nutshell, that's what it is. It's being able to give evidence about the HR activities around people to the CEO or the general manager or whoever. But it's finding that evidence and that data. And you don't necessarily need to have a Workday people, and Oracle systems. It's not about the system, it's about the mindset, it's about the capability and competency around analysing, hence the word data scientist, if you like. It's that analytical capability.
Now, I think KPIs are dying a death. I think that, like Ezrin said, you can suffer from that data paralysis, analysis paralysis. That rhymes better, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. But do you think that HR is turning away from analysing what has happened and is now much more looking at what will happen or might happen in the future?
I think it has to. It's not a question of should. It's a matter of have to, because you've got a number of global and big complex issues that are impacting the workforce. The most obvious one that we know about is the ageing population. There are a number of organisations, and they could even be represented in this room, that will lose somewhere between 10 and 35% of their workforce over the next 7 years through retirement. Now that's a big impact. So how do you deal with it? So you have to think about the future from that perspective. I would also say, and to my colleague here in insurance, the customer expectation is changing on a daily basis. You know, insurance is an industry that's really responding to that quite in a disruptive way. Technology, there are things that are driving the need for HR to think about how do we take the people asset and give evidence to our CEOs of what we could be doing better or where we have problems.
So what are the most important evidence that we're going to give to the CEO then? Give me 3 most important figures I need to go to the CEO with.
Yeah.
You can have a bit of thinking time on that if
I
you
hadn't thought
want.
about the answer to that one. Well, maybe my colleagues would like to.
You can have one each. Go on, Ezrin.
I don't want to elaborate on the matrices, but just wanted to add on the subject, yeah? What I want to share is sometimes the KPIs, or whatever you want to call it, it's about asking the right questions. Yeah? Previously, I won't mention the organization I was in, very structured, yeah? We were doing, what was that? Leadership and soft skills development, yeah? The evaluation method uses the Kirkpatrick, level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4. You've heard of that before, yeah? And they got really excited about these matrices, and what happened was, after a while, everything just stopped, because people were asking questions, prove that your training or your course is effective, yeah? And that kind of demoralized the people, those involved in leadership and development in that company, yeah? So sometimes we have to ask similar question, but twist it the other way, like French law. Prove that they are not learning. That's more difficult, isn't it? Because the thing is, the booming point of a person, yeah, they might learn something back in 2008, but then they start realizing and using those skills in 2014. So that's the thing. If you can't prove that they are not learning, then that makes more sense, rather than doing it the other way and destroying the culture of learning and development in the organization, yeah? So that's just one aspect. Yeah.
I'm very happy you asked that, because it's a beautiful segue into my next question, which was, what questions then should HR be asking? Okay, we know you've got to be careful not to demoralize, like you say, but what questions should we be asking then? So Vivian, I'm going to ask you, what questions should we be asking?
Yeah, I think we should ask questions that the CEO would ask themselves at midnight.
At midnight?
At midnight. What wake them up?
Right, okay.
If you can answer that questions, what your CFO, what your CEO, what your COO ask the questions, what get them wake up in the midnight, you probably will know the core priorities of the organizations. And for whatever we do within HR, if we can just go around the priorities of what helps them to wake up less in the midnight, I think we are resolving those questions. I know that my answer is a little bit vague, but I think for different organizations, we all have different scenarios. Say, for example, in our organization in AXA, I can easily share one example. One of the things in the insurance industry now is that the customer expectation is getting more and more. It is no longer about, okay, you die and we pay. It is no longer about that. This is more about health protections, more about preventions, protections, and expectations also comes with the first interaction you have with your agent is that when you buy the insurance, but then the next will be your claims. And that experience have a huge impact on whether customers will come back to us. So the core question is, how do we make our customers happy? And as a HR professions, how do we make a frontline employees know what they should do to make our customers happier? How can we contribute? If we can click and answer that questions, that helps.
Okay.
Can I give some examples of this? This is, again, this is just some work that we've been doing. McDonald's now recruits, they make sure that they recruit people over the age of 60. So they have a policy where they try to have at least one person over the age of 60 in various stores and outlets. And the reason why is, first of all, is to attract that demographic, so it's to increase revenue. And secondly is that it's the years of experience around relationship building that they have. They're actually really good team players, and they work better and work amongst the team really well. So that's a really good example of thinking about how you use, the people perspective. Another one is the Royal Bank of Canada. They can now profile a person that will potentially leave in the next 12 months. So they've analysed all of their people data to look at, here's the profile of typically somebody that will leave us. Now they've had to do that because they had a very high attrition rate. And as we know, attrition costs money. And so they took a hypothesis-based approach where they said, what does that profile of the person that wants to leave our organisation look like, and why?
Well, attrition rate is probably something Debbie knows all about in the hotel sector there. It's quite cutthroat there.
It's very cutthroat. And it's one thing that keeps me awake is how do I get that good turnover? How do I get that attrition that I'm looking for instead of losing talent that I want to keep? And that's a continual battle that we're facing of finding that profile. How do we engage with them, and how do we weed out?
We did some work with a hotel chain. It's very interesting. It's probably my most interesting experience around evidence-based HR. And they came to us, and we were helping them with their succession planning. And we asked them to plot their talent. And of course, they came back with the CFO, the CIO, the general manager of whatever. And we did some work with them, and we held a number of workshops with key people in the organisation. And what we found was the most critical role in the hotel group, and you already know this, I know you know this, is the person that the customer greets when you walk in the door.
Exactly.
It's the person on the front desk, correct?
Totally.
So then we did the analysis. How much training were they getting? How much development were they getting? What was the annual investment in that person versus the general manager? And lo and behold, the talent management strategy changed. I'm probably stealing your thunder a bit there, but
No.
And then they got rid of all the C-suites. They don't need those. Let's just focus on the front. Well, let's talk about, you mentioned there that it's important to drive that engagement. It's very important to try to keep that right talent on board. So what advice would you give everybody out there? If I want to keep my best talent, okay, we're going to suffer attrition, that happens, it's a natural thing, but I want to try to keep the best people on board. What are you doing in your organisations to help that be a reality? Okay, I'll start with Deborah.
We just literally last week conducted a development workshop. So we flew in people from around the world and basically met with them, put them onto the spectrum, and are now mapping out their individual development plans. And that's not at that top suite, it's a few layers down, because that's our leaders of the future. So it's everything from that to e-learning, to ongoing discussions, to engagement, to forums, to communities that we're building, the whole spectrum.
Those ongoing discussions, who's having them with who? Is that line managers, or is that C-suite, or is that HR?
It is both. It is the HR and it's their line manager, and then on an annual basis as well, that C-suite.
And what do you say? I mean, we all know about staff appraisals and sort of having a chat like that, but what are you doing beyond the norm in that respect?
That's why we have this individualised development plan, and it is based on that person's skills, their plans for themselves for the future. It's not just a pre-programmed and a cookie cutter. It is individualised to each person's skills and where they want to go in their future.
Okay, what do you do? I get a lot of people in HR saying, okay, we got these new guys on board, they're very get up and go, they're very young, and they come to you in that discussion and they go, yeah, well, I've been with the company 6 months now, so when am I going to be moving up to the C-suite?
Yeah.
What do you do with that kind of mentality?
Yeah, that is an ongoing discussion where it's kind of hold your horses. We need to, it's basically you map it then back to your competencies and where you sit on that spectrum. So it's linked back to something objective rather than a subjective conversation there.
Okay. Vivian, what are you doing at AXA?
Actually, I wish I know the answer so we can really kill the turnover rate. It's very challenging here, but we are trying to do it bit by bit. So what we have been trying is the management team try to get together and see how we can make AXA a better place to work. And that comes up with a series of different possible initiatives. ranging from some of the Gen Y requests, like can we wear casual wear from Monday to Friday, up to some serious topic like how can we make the systems a bit better, how can we make, the IT system, say for example, how can we make the infrastructure better. So it's the whole management team's discussions. I would say we are making it step by step, but the first step is we are trying to collect more bottom-up voices, so we're trying to collect people's voice. Say, for example, in the recent town hall, before we have the town hall, we look for online solutions like a social media type of things, and we invite people to pose questions. When you ask people who has a question in town hall, no one will raise their hand. But surprisingly, before we have the town hall, we ask people to raise question, and they can like the question, and the question will goes up to the rank. We finally collect thousands of votes and hundreds of questions. And I think this is the power of different tools that we are trying to use to hear people's voice.
So you garner those questions in private, then throw them up in front of everybody, and
Yes.
they can vote for their favorite questions.
And we get the management team on stage, and they are forced to answer the questions.
Okay, that's quite a good idea. And where are you on the casual?
That's what we mean by guts.
Where are you on the casual wear every day? How gutsy has that got?
And the CEO confirmed on the stage that everyone can wear casual wear Monday to Friday, depending on, of course, like the business requirement for certain roles. But I think we are forced to move into the trends that we need to serve the habitats of more like the new gens. They are looking for flexibility, agility, that kind of working environment.
I don't think it's just the new generations. I think some of the older generations are looking for that as well.
I thought that you were part of New Gen.
Ezrin, what are you doing at AirAsia?
Right, okay. This might be a little scary, but it's okay because I have Andrew, Carmen, and Catherine to protect me. Yeah? It's okay, they're here. All right, first and foremost, we remove job grades, no salary bands, flat organization. So it improves fluidity and movement. That's number one. Then two things we have to clearly state that we must celebrate. We will celebrate capacity to deliver. So that means one person can do like 5-6 persons' work. Yeah, of the same work. Yeah. Secondly, the ability to multitask. So you can do numbers, you can do branding, you can communicate well, you can front presentations, you can give opinions to the CEO, you can go straight down to the baggage handlers and have a casual conversation with them. These are the things we celebrate, yeah? So other than that, yeah, remove expat salary, expat bans, yeah? A captain from Bangladesh will earn the same as a captain from Long Island, New York. We don't care. You don't like the policy, you can go to Norway and work somewhere expensive, no problem, yeah? And another thing is we know about career tracks. We have things, the usual stuff that most organizations have, the vertical track. So you start from officer, executive, manager, the usual stuff. Yeah, that's no big news. And then we have the expert track. If you're a licensed aircraft engineer, that means you're a licensed aircraft engineer for life, but you just build on your skills and become a real expert. You can even earn more than your boss. And of course, number 3, I'm still hunting for another organization that does this. I still couldn't find it. Hopefully I'll find it one day. Radical career progression, yeah? So you can start from a ramp agent, bang, flight attendant, bang, captain. Well, you have to be a pilot first, yeah? Engineer, bang, becomes a strategist in the group CEO office, yeah? And if a person is young, we don't care. You can deliver, do it. Our group head of business development, Pete, he's only 26 years old, yeah? But he is more mature than, say, a 50, 60-year-old, because small things, like when he's traveling, he's reading, he's improving himself, yeah? He's not sleeping or eating whatever food on the plane, yeah? He's making himself busy. And don't make it too stressful. People are not shy to leave work at the time at 5 p.m. I've got to attend to my kids, bye-bye, then no problem, yeah? You don't get into this sick culture, oh, it's 6:00, I have to wait until the clock turns a bit to 6:17, then only I can look busy and I want to leave, yeah? So we don't have all that crap, yeah? At the same time, when you build the brand, then the magnet is there, people don't want to leave. They are thinking, oh, if I leave, where can I go? There's no better place than here. Something like that, yeah? All right? Thanks.
You mentioned that you celebrate people who have a greater capacity and do things. What do you mean by celebrate? Am I sensing they're not getting more money for doing 5 jobs at the same time?
They are paid damn well, really, really well. They are paid really, really, really well. Yeah. Doesn't mean that when I say there's no expat salary, that means we are paying people peanuts. No. Yeah. You'll be surprised. Many young managers earn more than managers in the UK and the US in AirAsia, and we don't care because they deliver. And that also builds their confidence. When they meet these people, they say, no, you're not better than me. Just because you have blue eyes and blonde hair doesn't mean you're smart. Yeah? I know, I'm sorry for the Caucasians here. Yeah? I'm just giving an example. Yeah? All right? Okay?
I'm on a pittance anyway. It doesn't matter.
You're Spanish. You're Spanish. Yeah.
In terms of like that engagement, okay, so there's a great deal of flexibility there, and people can jump different salary levels. I want to look at other options that are available to engage the staff. If you look at all the sort of engagement surveys, that yes, it's got to be a nice place to work. Yes, I've got to enjoy my boss. But salary and compensation always come up in as not surprisingly important issues for retention. I know that at Shangri-La you have stock options for the staff.
No, we don't.
No, you don't.
No, we don't.
No, I'm totally wrong there. You don't have
It's a different hotel.
Tell
me what you do have at Shangri-La for the staff.
It's a discussion that comes up every now and again, and obviously to remain competitive within the marketplace, we're obviously always exploring that. So we do our analysis of how we can get the best talent and what we offer. So stock options, it's always something tabled for discussion there.
Right, so it's been tabled for discussion, but you've decided against it. Is that right?
At the current time, let's say in the current climate, no, not on the table or anything.
Why do you think they're a bad option?
I personally, I'm on the. I've worked for other companies where it has been on the table, and I think it is a good incentive for a certain tier there or a certain group. So I'm kind of on the side of getting our evidence-based HR and putting together my numbers, but so far haven't been successful on that front.
All right, so if stock's not the way to go, what is the way to go then? What are you doing that's been successful in terms of reducing that attrition and keeping the right people there?
I think it's our brand and what we're known for. So of course, I always think your compensation and benefits, they need to be there. People will not take a step back financially. They have their own financial commitments, but it's our employer brand, and that's our commitment to our people, to their development, to their own brand, and what we can offer long term. And that caring. I know it sounds a little bit touchy-feely, but it's what we're known for, and I know that we deliver on it.
Again, can
Susie?
I just add to that?
Yeah.
We did a survey with a very large international organisation, and they can directly correlate the relationship between how much an employee believes in what the company is selling or marketing or producing, and their the performance of the organisation. So we've looked at it from the perspective in a bank, that we can break it down to retail outlets of how much somebody believes in what the products are versus the performance of that retail outlet. And that's what the CEO wants to hear. And it's all tied back to what Deb said, which is around how much does the employee value the brand and believe in the organisation, and what they're doing is actually contributing.
Okay, I'm going to open this to the floor now. I did promise you the chance to put your questions to the panel. So I'm expecting all of your hands to immediately shoot up. First one up gets the iPad. No, I'm just joking, but let's have a look for some questions from the floor. Other than from Linda, come on. She's not the only person that can ask questions in this room. I'll go to Linda first then, okay.
Thank you, panel, so much. That was just so insightful. So here, I'd like to address my question to you. From what you're saying about AirAsia, it sort of reminds me of an article that I read recently in Harvard Business Review about Netflix. And they hire fully formed people. So they've got away with all their HR policies and etc. And they really rely on the maturity of their employees. What I'd like to ask you is, I noticed in your bio that you do have an interest in spirituality. And I'd like to know how you bring that into the workplace and what difference it has made. Thank you.
All right. So this is about spirituality, yeah? Okay, all right. from an HR perspective, yeah, I think the main thing is, first of all, be transparent and extremely, extremely humble. You can be very direct, yeah, but when people know that you're consistent, yeah, that builds credibility. I'm now doing leadership and talent development, but people still want to come to me for benefits-related matters, salary-related matters, even firing-related matters. Why? Because they're comfortable, yeah? So whether it's through Buddhism or Confucianism or Christianity or Islam or whatever, yeah, the principles is very similar. It's about respecting people, and we must do that, yeah? Now, classic example, flight attendants in AirAsia or any other organization, people, especially for the females, people look at them like, hey, something which is very nice and juicy or whatever, yeah? All right? But when you project yourself as like a brother who cares, yeah? And it's a genuine question you ask, and people can differentiate between being genuine or just a fake or something cut and paste from the internet, yeah? Like where the person is standing, for example, yeah? Are those shoes comfortable? Yeah, do you feel okay? That kind of thing. And you shouldn't ask them when in front of people. Ask them when it's break time, when people are asleep on the plane. Yeah, so these are just some very, very simple examples. It's all about genuinity, and we have this trouble, especially in the corporate environment. We want to portray ourselves and make ourselves look big. That is a very, very wrong way to go, yeah? Instead, focus on adding value and being very sincere about the whole thing. Then you will do wonders, definitely.
I think another thing that made me think of was Stephen Covey was talking about the speed of trust as well. And I think that's something that spirituality might bring to HR. I don't want this to go off on a religious tent here, but I do think that it's important that people trust you in terms of building up that relationship. What do you feel about that? How important is that within the organisation? Susie, I'll let you go first.
I just wanted to add to that, is that if you take that idea to an organisational context, we work with a lot of clients around bringing values to life. So an organisation has values, your organisations have values. Often they live on the walls on a lovely poster, and we work with clients around how you bring those values off the wall of the poster into the day-to-day interactions and the behaviours within the organisation. And a very common one is what you've just both said, which is respect and trust. I'm sure many of your organisations out there in your value statements have we trust, we respect, we have mutual respect across our organisation. A question I am deliberating against is that if it's a value, how intrinsic is it? So why does it have to be up on a poster? That's something to think about. But I guess my point being is that there is a focus, that there's a realisation that values actually drives a better performance. And so being able to, everyone from different genders, different races, different religious beliefs, being able to buy into a common set of values is important.
How does that work, Vivian, in the insurance sector? Because there you have a lot of people who spend a lot of time out of the office, so they don't see that poster of the values on the wall. How do you get everybody on board there?
Yeah, that's exactly where I'm working on. I think it's very easy for the organization to say, well, this is the value we want to drive for. Trust is definitely one of the important elements you just mentioned. But one thing I want to add is trust can be very fragile. It's very easy for you to start the first step by building the trust and ensuring that everyone moves towards that. But the challenge is not with the first step, it's more about how to maintain it. I like the word you just used, Israel, about being consistent. And it's not just the management being consistent, it's the whole team being consistent. And sometimes I find that it's very hard for us to drive the middle management, the frontline management to be as consistent as what the top management want to drive for. I think this is where HR professional can add values. Yeah.
How do you go about doing that then? If you're getting a bit of resistance or you're getting a bit of inconsistency in that middle management, what have you found successful in helping to alleviate that?
Yeah, I think, well, I would say we haven't really been claimed that. We can't claim that we are successful at this stage.
I've never had anybody sit on any stage in HR and claim that they've been fantastically successful. Yeah. But what are you doing right, do you think?
Yeah, I think start with the influence at the top and ensure that they would influence their middle management. Because sometimes I find that they all align in the boardroom. Getting out of the boardroom is very easy to forget about that, because it may not be the most alarming message for them. They may care more about the business results, they care more about the firefighting thing. I think it's consistently to influence them. And what we are doing is, well, through a lot of different process of raising different issues to the top management, challenging the way they make decisions, asking the right questions. This is what I think we have been doing. And for myself, what I'm doing is not just I am doing that, but I'm encouraging my team to do it at different levels. That means to challenge different levels of management with questions and different setting. And this is very challenging for them as well. Yeah.
Yeah, something I saw on that note about challenging people at different levels that I think it was KPMG, not KPMG, sorry, PwC were doing. Was they got the new guys coming straight on board, like the absolute fresh graduates. They got them to go and appraise all of the senior partners in the organization. And I thought that was a great thing, because those guys really kind of been there for a long time and cobwebs on them and whatnot. And it was a real scary thing for them to have in their face. Some very young green guy or girl telling them that perhaps this wasn't the best way of doing things. And sometimes I think that shake-up is a good idea.
One example I can share with you is that we are planning for reverse mentoring. So having the new gen, 20 plus, to mentor our CEO and the C-suites. Yeah, isn't it a nice job? Actually, well, we just start to plan for that, but we can already see some of the interesting effect. Let me quote again the examples that I just used in the recent town hall. We arranged sections for the CEO to be on stage, and when he asked, does anyone have any question? Of course, we plan. One Gen Y raised the hands and say, you just mentioned about all the business results. I just don't get it. And then the CEO said, oh, why don't you come up to the stage and we can have a dialogue? And we pick a few Gen Y to challenge the CEO, and they have to give spontaneous answers to some of the questions. And sometimes I find that throughout the process, as I work with that group of Gen Y, they actually offer better HR solution than me, or some of the challenging questions to the CEO. And I think that we just need to continuously doing that.
I think that's because they haven't gone through all the corporate blinkers, and so they still don't give a monkeys, and they'll say what they think, sort of thing. And that's sometimes the best way, actually, for solving problems. How about at the hotel?
Yeah, no, we're also in discussion at the moment for reverse mentoring. And yeah, it's a kind of touchy subject, so still in the discussion phase of it. And
you do a lot of discussing.
Yeah, I'm trying to push that for 2015. Coaching is also what we're concentrating at the moment. So within our leadership team and in those top levels in the hotel, so that to me it all starts from the head, right? So.
Okay.
It's very hard to drive all the different initiatives if you haven't got that strong leadership to push that and persuade.
Okay. Other questions from the floor? Look, they're just not going to get those iPads. I'm going to ask you one from me then, okay? So I want to talk now about learning and development a little bit more, okay? The learning and development hat for HR. And I think one thing is, how do you actually build a good learning and development strategy? And then the other part of it is, once you've built it, how do you actually drive that throughout all levels of the organization, and not just focus it on your hypos or focus it in a particular area? What sort of L&D strategies have you found useful, Ezrin?
All right, okay. Before I'm doing leadership and talent development, I was handling other matters in HR. I actually requested for this portfolio because one thing was missing those days in AirAsia. You had performance, you had talent review, but development was missing. Yeah, so I was getting pissed off, and they said, "No, we don't want you. We want a professor from I think Australia or something." Yeah. He came in, flunked, and got fired. So I replaced him. Yeah. The main thing is, first of all, don't reinvent the wheel. Okay. Why are we reinventing the wheel? Because the thing is, when you get into brainstorms, you get into this fantasyland hallucination thing that, yes, it's going to be very, very genuine, it's from the company. But the thing is, in discussions, the loudmouths, they will talk more. Yeah? Some people who are quiet, are intelligent, they might not say so many stuff. So instead of doing that, we can actually go through already established systems. So we can check leadership expectations in Google, General Electric, Harvard, Yale, UCLA, Oxford, Cambridge, Hong Kong Business School, whatever, Japan, yeah? And what we found was, yeah, universally, the core elements of leadership and talent development is the same, yeah? So we don't have to reinvent. So it's not about reinventing the wheel, it's refining the wheel, okay? Secondly, it's execution, and this is very natural in AirAsia. We are very, very, very action biased, yeah? So if a person starts to talk too much about philosophy, I'm going to call him and sit beside me, okay, prepare a one-page slide, and I'm going to time you how long it takes to prepare a PowerPoint presentation. If you're going to take 3 days to prepare a PowerPoint presentation, you better leave the company. I want that to be finished in the next 20 minutes. So you have to be very, very smart in the way you use PowerPoint, Excel, Google Slides, Google Sheets, and so forth. Yeah? All right? So it's these kind of things. And then, again, respect. It's not just about high pose, high potential. We do have something called the Next Generation Leaders program, yeah, for the Mavericks, yeah. That's how people like Pete and so forth, along those similar models, they get to group head of business development. But roughly, we make it very simple. Don't make it too complex. So there's this central, I mean, if I may draw, we call it work tools, which is like the backbone. Because the thing is, there's a lot of rich content, relevant content in the internet, but people say that, yeah, I'm going to read it during the weekend. But no, during the weekend, you're going to go shopping or chill out, whatever, yeah? So this is like a very active way of enticing people to develop themselves. Let it be in communication, learning about strategy, learning how to write emails well, and so forth, yeah? And then after that, we have the 4 main building blocks, which is leadership for senior managers, leadership for managers, leadership for executives, and leadership for non-executives. And when I mean non-executives, I actually mean even the baggage handlers and the guest service agent, yeah? I mean, as an example, we talk about personal hygiene. And many people said, oh, I didn't realize that my breath stinks. No wonder all the customers are running away from me. Yeah, so he starts brushing his teeth. Simple example, yeah, but it's actually part of leadership, personal leadership, being responsible for yourself, yeah, because you're not living in a jungle, yeah. And then we build based on that, and the main thing is delivery. So we make sure that out of 5 days a week, it has to be 3 days on, 2 days off. 3 days we are delivering, 2 days off, it's for research, it's for analytics, and we make things very, very transparent. Everything is on Google. We've gone Google. Goodbye, Microsoft. Yeah, I know you're good, but goodbye, Microsoft. Yeah. So we're using Google Sheets, Google Docs, Google Forms. Everything's Googleized. Yeah. Any analytics that is crunched out is shared to the whole company, not just CEO or whatever. Yeah. Even the RAM agent can open and says, oh, okay, so that's what happened to development in my department for that particular day. Oh, that guy got 3 days more than me. Why? Yeah, that kind of thing. Yeah. So it's about execute. There's no point, I mean, you've heard this many, many times, building such a great strategy that becomes stale and irrelevant, yeah? It's better to just keep it going, execute and build, and you can see it happening live. If you can't see it, you can't feel it, it's not happening. Thank you.
All right.
Sorry, too long.
No, that's fine. I think we should safely have Google in for sponsors for next year. Okay.
Yeah, I think they paid him already.
Vivian, what are you doing at AXA in terms of L&D?
I share some views with Astrid. The only one thing I would add is, well, I think if I can quote one of the concepts that psychology field is now encouraging is the positive psychology. And when I try to apply it at the world well from the L&D perspective, I would say don't focus so much only on the development needs. Focus on leveraging people's strength. And only by encouraging our middle management and top management, being able to bring the best out of people and to help people to find out what's the best in them and help them to ride on it, I think it's even more powerful than focusing so much at the traditional so-called, well, here's the development needs and here's the capability building needs and we all get our hands into it. Yeah, we still need to work on it, but I think.
So how do you find that out then? How do you before you can leverage those, you need to know what those individual strengths are. What methods do you use to find those strengths?
I believe that dialogue is the most powerful thing. Management's observations day to day on their staff's strength is the best thing. And by the solid results they deliver, and if a manager is mature, they shouldn't say that they don't know what the strength of their peoples are. Sometimes they just miss out and take it for granted instead of like further encouraging them to leverage those strengths and raise it to the next level, like helping each other, the other team members, or spread it out further to other people, or to raise it to another levels. I think sometimes this is the missing point. What we start to do is, in different types of dialogue, including the performance management dialogue, especially for key talents, we try to force the manager to really sit down and name some of the key strengths that they need to help their people to leverage, instead of talking about the development needs anymore. And I find that it is not only about us, but it's pretty common in the financial industries these days. More and more of us are using these tactics. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I've learned an enormous amount over the last hour, okay? And I'm going to give you 5 seconds and 2 or 3 words maximum, okay? I want you to try to tell me what you feel out of the whole of your work in HR. What is the fundamental thing that you feel is most important, okay? Ezrin?
Versatility.
Vivian?
Agility.
Susie?
Evidence.
And Debs?
Recognition.
I thought you were going to say having a meeting about it. Recognition, okay. Well, thank you so much. Let's give it up for our panel there. We have Deborah Kelly, Global Director of Talent, Shangri-La International Hotel Management Limited. Susie Quirk, People and Change Advisory Lead, Hong Kong and China Management Consulting, KPMG Advisory China Limited. That's a very long title there. Vivian, Head of Learning, Talent and Organizational Development for AXA. And
Call me Ezrin.
I'll just say Ezrin, okay. Group Head of Learning and Talent Development for AirAsia. Thank you so much for your time today. Thank you so much for sharing.